you have to create a system that works for you. Like if somebody gave me an Excel sheet, like you saw what a hard time I had setting up this video conference. Like I would look at the Excel sheet and be like, no, I'm all set. Like I'm not interested, you know? But honestly, if a system was me writing in a bullet journal, then, you know, then it's a system that I'm interested in, mostly because of stickers, you know, and washi tape and glitter pens. But like, you know, whatever. Whatever we all need to stay organized.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes before we get started with our interview and talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. There is so much going on in the world right now. I've spoken to so many of you who are dealing with a lot, dealing with losing your job or getting evicted or being sick. So many people are experiencing loss and are overwhelmed with so much. And I just want to let you know that it's okay to step back. It's okay to focus on your own self-care for a while. You don't have to be informed all the time. You can turn off the news, you can turn off social media, and you can just focus on you. It's kind of personal for me because I haven't been feeling well again. I was sick in January and February for like 9 weeks, and I was well for a couple of months, and now I find myself sick again. And it's exhausting. It's terrible because I never wanted to feel this bad again, but here I am. And I've been to the doctor and they're like, well, we don't know. We don't know what to tell you. We can't really help you. So it's like, okay, what do I do? And it's this weird combination of feeling like I'm not going to be okay. It's like a cold that makes it really, really hard to breathe. So there've been a few times where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And having that feeling and that thought like really hits home, and it makes you really stop and think about what you're doing with your life and are you doing the right things? So I've spent a lot of time in the last week thinking those types of things. Like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to make it through this. But then at the same time, like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? I know that each one of us has a special purpose, a special reason that we were put on this world, something that we're supposed to do with our lives, right? And I thought that I had found mine. I really thought that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And now I feel like I'm rethinking the whole thing. And I also want to let you know that that's perfectly fine. the purpose that we have doesn't have to be the same for our whole entire lives. It can change. And sometimes there are big things that happen to you that change the course of your life, that change what's really important to you. And that's exactly what's happening to me right now. It's interesting to be aware of it and to watch it happen, like in real time. It's fun and it's fascinating, and I'm excited because I know that there are some big changes coming. I know that I'm making some big changes in my life personally. And a lot of them are things that people ask me about that I really haven't had answers to before. But now I'm finding those answers, and I'm so excited to be able to share some of them with you, hopefully very, very soon. So even though I've been sick, it's really been a blessing for me because it's given me the time and space to think about what I really want. How do I really want to spend every single day? What's really, really important to me? The answers are kind of surprising, but at the same time, I'm ready to stop putting things off. I'm ready to stop saying tomorrow, stop saying next week, stop saying next month. Let's do it today. What's wrong with today, right? What if we don't have next week? What if we don't have next month? Let's get started on it today, so that even though we do have next week and next month, hopefully, and next year, we'll have made so much more progress by the time we get there, right? So I just wanted to tell anybody out there who's feeling lost or who's confused or unhappy, if you just don't feel like you know who you are, I've been there and I'm figuring it out, and I'm going to help you through this. We're going to figure it out. I'm creating some really exciting things through the process because I know that I've learned so much over the last couple of years that I'm implementing now and taking action on them. So I'm really excited to be able to share them with you very, very soon. So make sure that you stay tuned. If this sounds like something that you're interested in, you can sign up for my email list. You can go to infjwoman.com. There's a bar at the top of the page where you can put your email in, and I'll also put a link for it in the show notes as well. All right, so our guest today is Amy Salamone. We talked about being INFJ and her business, which is called Tidy Home Havens, which is all about organizing your home to create a sacred haven, which is so important for us as INFJs. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you know that you can get the show notes along with all the links to everything we're talking about by going to thequietonespodcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out my book, The INFJ User Guide. This book will help you to understand what it means to be an INFJ and to see the impact that it has on your life. Also, you can watch the video interview at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. How did you find out your personality type?
So, actually, it's interesting because I have taken the MyerBriggs test actually many times because I teach my students, because I'm a teacher, and I teach my students essentially to create a mixed media collage of their own brains. And so one of the things that I have them do is take a MyerBriggs personality test and then kind of take a look at like what are the strengths and weaknesses for their personality type, and what do they associate with or agree with, and what do they not agree with. And so I've taken the test several times as a result of that. And when I first started talking to you, but of course I forgot what my personality type was. And then I started talking to you and I took it again. And I was not at all surprised by the outcome, but it was the INFJ personality type, which is the podcast that you have essentially.
Yeah.
So, and then upon reading about my personality, I was just kind of blown away by how mostly dead on it was to me as a person. So
yeah, it's so amazing that you're teaching kids when they're young.
Yeah.
I wish that I would have known when I was young. I first took it when I was in college, but it really didn't hit home with me until maybe the last 5 years.
Okay.
But part of the thing that I loved about it, I was teaching my niece who was 13 at the time, and she just fell in love with it too. And so then she's asking me all these questions because she's an INTP. So she's has lots of questions and she has to know all the facts, and like you have to be dead on with your facts. Otherwise there's more questions. And it's one of those things that helped me a lot though, because if she's asking me all these questions, then you don't really know something until you can teach it to somebody else.
Yep, that's true.
So then it helped me to be able to go back and say, okay, why is this? And every time she would ask me why, it's like, okay, I have to figure out why is this.
Yeah, it's really similar with teaching, like, high school students. You have to think about all of the crazy amount of questions they're going to ask you and then have all the answers beforehand. So
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Has it had any effect on your life, knowing about your personality, or have you learned anything about yourself from it?
It's made me feel a lot less crazy. Because a lot of times I'll say to it was kind of comforting because I'll say to my students, ask them when we're trying to get to the heart of what their personality is. We'll talk about introverted versus extroverted. And I've always felt like a little bit of both. Whereas like I have all of this energy and I'm so social when I'm in front of people, but then I also really need to be by myself a lot of the time. And my job being someone who's always up and in front of people can be very draining for me. And so it was really interesting to see that as part of a personality profile, as opposed to like that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't capable of going to work all day and then coming home and still feeling energized and wanting to go out with people. And so I think in that way, it's been really comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, there were definitely parts of it, like when I was reading about it, it was talking about being an open book or not being an open book. And I am an open book. Like I will talk about anything to anybody. But other than that, I mean, really, it was just kind of comforting to and interesting to see pretty much everything that I think about myself written on a piece of paper in front of me.
Yeah.
Digital piece of paper.
Yeah. I think sometimes I feel like I am an open book too. And especially since I've started this podcast, I talk about a lot of things on the podcast that I don't talk to my friends and family about.
Yeah.
So I feel like in some circumstances we can be an open book, especially when it's somebody that we feel comfortable with or that we really connect with.
Well, yeah. I think that, you were just saying in the podcast, you've kind of become more of an open book. I think that because of my professional job, it forces me to become an open book because it's kind of a tool that I use to disarm people, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And so when you're teaching, the most important thing is your personal relationships with your students. And so I'm overly honest with them, and then they're honest with me, and it builds a lot of trust in a relationship. So I think I've just used it as a tool over time and developed it because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you're a teacher too. I loved school. I loved college. I spent 10 years in college, which is
oh wow, what
it was way too long. Well, I'm one of those indecisive people who could never figure out what they wanted to do. So I wanted to be an engineer when I was in high school. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be an engineer. But then there was a lot of people saying, well, you're a girl. And I'm like, what does that have to do with being an engineer? Right. So I studied engineering for a while, and then I ended up switching my major to business, and I got super bored because I didn't like business at all. And then I ended up switching it to criminal justice.
Oh, okay.
So I have one degree in business marketing, and then one degree in criminal justice. And then I went back to school because I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. I said I was going to be an engineer. I'm going to be an engineer. And so I studied mechanical engineering for about 3 years. And I left with 3/4 of a degree, actually.
Oh my God. Wow. That's a lot of dedication to leave it all behind. That's pretty awesome of you that you made that change.
It was one of those aha moments. I was talking to Sierra Mayfield. She was on the podcast earlier this year. And we were talking about how sometimes as INFJs, we have this big goal and dream, and we tell everybody that that's what we're going to do. And then we stick to it. And it's like, you get halfway down the road and you're like, you know what? This isn't really what I want to do. But you're kind of really invested in it. And you're also really embarrassed because you told like everybody. And you don't want to be like, okay, well, you know, it's really hard and it wasn't what I thought and I don't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I stuck with it for longer than I should have, honestly, because of that. But then I was able to, I got a job in the field that I wanted to work in anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm just done. And everybody's like, well, why don't you finish your degree? You only have 1 more year. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm done.
Okay.
And somebody just asked me about it too. Just a couple of months ago, I was telling them that I studied engineering and they're like, well, why don't you finish? And I'm like, oh, well, you know what? It's been more than 6 years, so I'd have to start over again. So
were you like waiting for that 6-year mark to come so you could say that?
I think I kind of was, because it's also something that's kind of weighed on my mind. That's like, I should finish that. You know, I spent a lot of money on it that I'm still paying for. And, you know, it's like, it's one of those regrets where, for me, I was trying really hard to do the right thing the first time, and it ended up being so bad.
Yeah.
But it's also helped me to kind of go back and reevaluate some of my goals, because it's like, is this a dream that I have because it's always been a dream, or is it still something that I want?
Yeah.
And I've realized that's kind of a big thing, because there's a lot of things that I've felt like I've always wanted. And now I'm like, do I really want that? Or is it just, I think I need it because I've always wanted it, you know?
Yeah, I know. I definitely can relate to a lot of that because I have a degree in microbiology, and then I went to go get a PhD in microbiology, and I was in San Diego, but I had applied to San Diego and Georgetown, and I actually got into San Diego, and then maybe it was a week before I was moving to San Diego, I got my acceptance letter from Georgetown. But because I was already moving, I ended up going to San Diego. If I had gone to Georgetown just for all of the reasons you said, I would be a microbiologist right now. Like, I would have pushed myself through in this job that I wasn't interested in, you know, in this career that I wasn't interested in, just because I would have felt like I had to. And I don't know, one of the things I was reading with INFJs is this idea of like having all of these ideas for what you want to do, but not really knowing how to get it together. And I still feel like I'm spinning my career wheels all the time of like, what do I want out of my life? I don't know. Like, I've told everyone in my life, I'm like, I think I want to be a mail carrier. I think I want to like, you know, be an astronaut. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I thought about aerospace engineering for a while too, honestly. And I was serious about it. I'm like, listen, these are the schools where you can study aerospace engineering. Like, here's what you have to do. I want to be a rocket scientist. And my parents are going like, seriously?
Yeah. There's no lack of going back to school, you know?
Right.
Yeah, for a while I wanted to get a PhD in evolutionary biology and animal behavior, you know, and if there was a degree program near me, I would be in it right now. But the best one is across the country, so that's the only reason I'm not.
Yes. I talk to so many INFJs though who have problems figuring out their career. And for me, it's just like, oh, same. Yeah, same.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with it though. I think so many people, and it's fine for them, but so many people get caught in a career, not caught in a career, but they're completely satisfied with just doing the same thing for their whole life. But for me, I just feel like that would be too static. Like, I think it's good that I always feel a little bit lost, because then I'm always changing and evolving, and I'm not willing to be, let's say, you know, a classroom teacher for 30 years. It's just not something that I can see in my future. So it's kind of fun to think about, like, what do I want to do? Where's my career going to take me, you know?
Yes. I think that's part of our personal development too. Like we evolve as people over time, and because we're constantly learning about not only our jobs, but our emotions and our, you know, the lives that we have. And it's like, okay, this doesn't suit me anymore. This doesn't fit me. So I need to do something else. I tell people that I've been like, I'm glad I didn't get married when I was 20, because I've been like 3 whole different people since then.
Yeah.
I would have been divorced probably twice by now. So, yeah, I love the fact that we can dream really big dreams and then figure out how to put it together. I love the puzzle and I love the challenge, and it's like a love-hate relationship too, because I dream these really big dreams and then I'm like, okay, how do I figure it out? And then I figure it out and it's like, then I get really scared. But I think Kathy talks about this on her podcast too. She's like, when you're really scared, but also really excited, that's when you have to go for it. That's when you know that it's something that you need to do.
Yeah. That's extremely good advice. Kathy.
One of the reasons that I wanted to write a blog was to talk about all the stuff that I can't talk about with my friends. And it was really hard when I started, and sometimes it's still really hard because it's like, I want to talk about stuff that I can't talk about on my blog. And one of the best posts that has gotten the most views by far is called The Dark Side of the INFJ or something like that. The INFJ Dark Side, I think. And I talked about all of the really scary stuff that nobody really talks about. And sometimes I worry that I talk too much about the dark stuff, but that's how I feel, you know, that's what I think about all of the time. I'm not this happy and peppy person, but working in marketing, I have to try to be that way, you know, and when you're around other people, like at the grocery store and, you know, your other friends who don't really get your personality, then you end up trying to be that way. And so it's like when I have downtime or when I have time to write about something, I want to write about the dark and scary stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, and the rest of it can be kind of emotionally exhausting. There's this happiness blog that I listened to where they were talking about emotional theater and how emotional theater actually causes like people to essentially just, it increases anxiety in people, and you know, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to have jobs or to be in situations where you're exhibiting this kind of emotional theater. And I definitely identify with that because all day long, you know,
teenagers
happy and I have a bunch of like, you know, sometimes very sullen teenagers in front of me and I'm like, hey guys, like, you know, and then I get home and I just want to stare at a wall. So
right.
It makes sense. So I understand how you feel.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of it is good though, because once you start writing about that kind of stuff, then you analyze it more because you have to think about it in order to write it. And then all of the feedback that comes from it as well, you know, other people agreeing or disagreeing and then bringing up different points. And then it's like, okay, what do we do with this? Maybe it's not okay for it just to sit there. Maybe we need to work through it somehow. Maybe we can all collectively do this and realize that maybe this isn't how it's supposed to be. And we can figure out how to move on to the next phase, whatever that is. And maybe we're never going to be those happy, peppy people who are just great at that all the time and like it. And that's totally fine. But maybe we just can be a little bit less dark sometimes.
Yeah, but then you also don't know, you know, when you have that happy, peppy person in front of you, how much of that is genuine and how much they're going home. And you know.
I had this graphic on Instagram. It's so funny. Instagram is just, it's so enlightening for me because some of the things that I post on there, I think this is ridiculous. It's just me. I'm the only person who does this. And then I'll post it and it'll be like the biggest thing and then everybody likes and they're like, oh, I do that too. But I posted one about, I don't like people, I think it said something like, I don't like people who are happy and all sunshine and butterflies all the time. They creep me out because they can't be real. That it can't be that way all the time.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by the reaction that it got. It was like a 50-50 mix of what's wrong with you? What's wrong with happy people? And the other people are like, oh yeah, the same. I hate those people too.
Well, yeah, because the people that are like, what's wrong with you are probably the happy people and they were just insulted, you know?
Yes, they're trying to be happy and peppy because they've been told that they should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh God.
You talked about traveling because of the art business.
Yeah. So essentially, you know, over over the course of really trying to figure out what it is I want to do, because I've been all over the place, kind of ping-ponging around through so many different ideas. So it dawned on me that people are always telling me how efficient I am time-wise and how organized I am and how I'm really good at creating infrastructure. And then also a lot of my friends, when they come to my house, you know, they kind of are always like, I want you to decorate my home for me. Um, and I have a real interest in home decor in general, but mostly my business, Tidy Home Havens, is more so about organizing and creating infrastructure for people so that it can kind of play in the background and help them to live their lives more efficiently and with less effort so that they can actually enjoy the things that they want to do. And so, yeah, so it was just, you know, it just kind of like naturally came about that this is really what I should be doing. Originally, when I started this business, I kind of started as a home organizing and decor business. And then this is actually really funny. I was with a friend of mine helping her in her house, and we had to use, what's it called? We had to hang something heavy and use an anchor. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. My husband always does it. And she was like, well, don't you need to know how to do that in order to be a home decorator? And I was like, you know what? I think I just want to go with organizing. When I think about it, that's what I'm really good at. You know, I'm really good at helping people create structure in their lives. And I think I'm so good at it because it's what I do in my classroom for the last 15 years. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that could really be an INFJ thing, or maybe it's just a you and I thing, because I'm great at that. I actually thought about studying systems engineering for a while, because I'm like, I can look at a situation and say, okay, this is the first time I've walked into this business or this home or whatever it is, and say, this is what's wrong and this is how you need to fix it, because it can be way more efficient if you do it this way. I've noticed it gets me into a lot of trouble in business because
people don't want the suggestions, or
they don't want to know. They will tell you, we are hiring you to come in here and fix this. And you're like, great, that's exactly what I'm good at. I can do that. And then you go in there and they're like, what are you talking about? We don't want you to do anything. We just want you to sit here. And I'm like,
okay.
Okay. Well, if you're going to pay me to do that, then I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think, well, that's another thing. If there's one thing that I've learned, even over the short course of me having this business, is that people don't like being told what to do, even when they're asking you what to do. So, but luckily for me, I work in a job where people don't like being told what to do, you know?
So you know how to navigate all that.
Exactly. It's been really good training for like navigating people's emotional responses and like, you know, looking at a situation from their perspective and really tiptoeing around someone's defenses. So
Yes. I've learned that about myself too. I started going to counseling about 5 years ago, and it was the best thing that I've ever done.
Oh, that's great.
But when I first started, I would go and talk to this lady, and she'd be like, okay, well, I think that this is your problem. And I'm like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's not my problem. And she'd be like, okay, why do you think that way? And I'm like, this is really annoying. I don't know why I keep paying you to do this to me. But then I would think about it for a while, and sometimes it would be a couple of weeks or a month before I would go back. And then I would find myself sitting in her office going, okay, that wasn't actually dumb what you said. I guess it was true. And I mean, I think I feel really bad about it now, because I can see it from her perspective, and it must be really frustrating for her to have somebody say that to you. But then I always came back and was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know why you still want to work with me, but
yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure she's
great. As long as you're here, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely sure she's used to it as a counselor, right? And you know, I mean, I think it's just human nature to get defensive when someone calls one of your behaviors into question, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it's something that you know is not working, it's still so much easier to just defend yourself and be like, well, this is the way I do things, because, and I do it too all the time. So like, I can be extremely defensive when I am being called into question for my choices or actions, you know? So,
right.
Yeah. I think just having that understanding is really important in something like home organization or even business organization, like you were talking about, or like I do also. because it's just such a sensitive matter, you know?
Yes. It makes such a big difference though.
Yeah.
Especially for my home, I've noticed. I'm great at keeping things organized when they are organized.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
as soon as I let it slide, then it turns into a disaster. And it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow and I'll do it tomorrow. And then 3 weeks later, it's like, why can't I see the floor anymore?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I just wrote a blog post a couple days ago because I was sick. I told you I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, and so I haven't been cleaning my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, do I want to clean my house this weekend, or do I want to just pay somebody else to clean my house? So I ended up deciding I was going to have someone come in and clean my house, which I don't do very often. I usually only do it before my Christmas party. So like once a year, it'll be like a special treat. But anyway, I was sitting there on Thursday night and I'm like looking around my house and I'm just like, it's actually really clean in here. Like it's dirty because it needs to be dusted and mopped and all of that. But like everything is so in order. There's nothing out. There's no clutter. And then I wrote this whole blog post on the difference between having goals and establishing systems, and the importance of establishing systems as opposed to just a goal like, I'm going to clean out my closet. That's great. But if you don't have a system for where you put things and for how you keep yourself organized, that is just part of your like natural way of doing things, then you're going to have to clean your closet out in like 3 more weeks or 2 more months, you know? And
Yes.
so it was just really interesting to me that I'm looking around my house and I'm like, do I need to pay somebody else to clean this? Like, I think I'm good, but I still did because I'm incredibly lazy and I've been. I just wanted to not work this weekend.
Well, I lived in an apartment for a while where part of my rent was what was included in it was a cleaning lady every
That's
other
amazing.
week. And I was like, I would pay her just to come and take out the trash because I don't want to take out the trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made such a huge difference. It was like, I can focus on everything else.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about systems because I feel that way in my business. It's like, I want to create a system. I want to create a system. And I keep telling myself that. I even have a coach who's like an accountability coach. Mm-hmm. And I keep telling her, I want to create a system. Like I need to figure out how to organize this better. And she's like, okay, I sent you an Excel sheet to fill out so you can schedule your time. And she's like, why didn't you do it? And I'm like, I don't have time. And then I sat down in front of it and I'm going, this is really overwhelming and I have to figure all of this out. Like, I don't know how to figure this out. So let me just ignore it because if I don't want to do it, I'll just avoid it.
Well, yeah. And I also think it's really important for you to talk to the person, like creating systems for you, because you have to create a system that works for you. Like if somebody gave me an Excel sheet, like you saw what a hard time I had setting up this video conference. Like I would look at the Excel sheet and be like, no, I'm all set. Like I'm not interested, you know? But honestly, if a system was me writing in a bullet journal, then, you know, then it's a system that I'm interested in, mostly because of stickers, you know, and tape. And glitter pens. But like, you know, whatever. Whatever we all need to stay organized.
I have to have colored pens because I love colored pens.
I have an entire bag full of paper.
I went to sign my lease for my current apartment and the guy brought the lease over and he's like, do you have a pen? And I'm digging through my purse and I'm like, oh, well, I have a purple pen and I have a green pen. And he's like, I don't think any of those are legal. And I'm like, well, if you don't like my colorful pens, you're gonna have to find something else.
Like, why is it that only blue and black pens are legal? I don't understand. Like, why don't you want purple glitter?
I'm like, well, this one is kind of blue. Like if you split, right, it could be blue.
That should be fine.
Like, what's your definition of blue?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit more eclectic. I think that Bank of America should accept these things.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's super important for you to have a conversation with someone you're working with and figure out what is going to work for them. Because, you know, like I said, Excel for me would just be, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference to me too, I've noticed, to my mental health, especially when I come home and everything's messy and dirty. It just feels a lot heavier because you know, we spend all day at work around other people or trying to avoid other people at work. And you take on other people's emotions and you come home and you just want to relax and decompress.
Yeah.
And when everything is organized and looks nice, or at least all put away, and there's no dirty dishes, the laundry's done and all that stuff, it makes me feel a whole lot better. Whereas when I come home and I'm like, oh, I have all this stuff that I have to do, then it feels so much harder.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was moving into this house 10 years ago, I remember I set up my living room to be exactly the way it is now 10 years later on the first day. And because I was starting the school year, and just like you said, I needed a sense of normalcy and a sanctuary. And that's really why I wanted to start this business also, because for me, it's so important to have a sanctuary when I come home every day. And but even for people who have, because I don't have any children, so it's a lot easier for me to create a sanctuary of peace when I come home. But even if you have children, establishing systems in your life so that things can get done more efficiently, give you more time to relax, but also to spend time with your family. So, that's a big reason why I wanted to start the business.
Yeah, I love that. My home, my bedroom has always been my sanctuary. And I don't understand people who don't like to spend time at home. One of the guys at work, he he like works until 7 or 8 o'clock at night every single day. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with your house that you don't want to go there? Do you need a different house? Do you need to move?
So in learning about the INFJ personality, so it was really funny because obviously one of the main things is homebody, and this idea of organizing so that your home is a sanctuary. And in my head, because this is after I started my business, I'm like, wait, does everyone not want this? Like, is everyone not like me? Did I just start a business pretty much for people to feel the way that I feel?
Yes.
But I also have many friends, and there have been some friends of mine that I'm working with them on their houses, and one of them on her business. And they're nothing like me. But even them, I would never categorize them as an INFJ personality. But even them, it's important for them to have a sanctuary and have a place of peace when they come home. So it made me feel a little bit better about my life.
Well, all right. Well, tell us where we can find you, your website and your social media.
Yeah, so my website is tidyhomehavens.com. And actually right on my website, the first thing that comes up is my Instagram feed. So my Instagram feed is actually Tidy Home Haven without the S at the end, but they are connected. So if you just go to the website, you can get to my page. And on my page, if anyone is interested in booking a session with me, essentially I could work with people in home if there are people in this area, but also I wanted to create a digital kind of relationship with people where essentially I'll have a beginning consultation where someone will tell me what their issues are, what parts of their house they're unhappy with, but really what parts of their lives aren't working for them. And then we can work on establishing systems to help them kind of run things more efficiently and smoothly.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah, so you can actually get in contact with me right on the website too. There's a little link for getting in contact. Obviously, just like on everyone's website,
Right. All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe wherever you listen. It helps other people to be able to find us. And I hope that you will come back again next week as well.